Last time on the channel, we talked about how Sanji changed drastically after the time skip, and I feel like a lot of people don't realize just how much half of the Straw Hats have really changed. As you can see from the title today, we're going to talk about how Usopp changed very drastically, as he went from a brave warrior to the sea to basically back to square one where he was before. The change wasn't as drastic as Sanji, but it was still very noticeable, enough for people to pick up that he had very different characterization since the time skip had happened. So come on with me today as we talk about how Usopp went from being one of the more interesting members of the Straw Hats to basically being an afterthought and still stuck in the same character arc he was before the time skip had happened. But before that, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as it helps the channel out. And recently, I just dropped a new episode of my podcast with my friend Enigma. So if you want to hear us talk about One Piece together, why don't you go over there and check it out? The link will be in the description. Usopp is first introduced during the Serb Village arc, the third ever arc in the entire series, and it goes to say that it's one of the lesser arcs in the series. As many people know, One Piece doesn't have the best start. Usopp in this arc isn't bad, but it doesn't portray his strengths very well, as everyone knows it's probably the worst introduction arc to any of the Straw Hats. It might be the slow pacing or the very forgettable villain. Yes, I know the live action does make it more interesting, but overall, Sir Village doesn't add much to the world of One Piece, as without it, you don't gain anything other than the introduction of Usopp. Oh, as well as Mary, another important aspect of the series. But I will say this arc does introduce the three most important aspects of Usopp: the cowardice, the lying, as well as the most underrated one that most people don't think about when you think of Usopp is the loyalty. Keep that word loyalty in the back of your head. It's going to become very important later on. By the end of Serb Village, Usopp joins the Straw Hats after showing his first true act of bravery in the series, which was standing up to Kuro to protect Kaya. Usopp's just there during Baratie, and the only important thing he is there for is just to see Sanji join the crew. But during Arlong Park, he has his first real moment as a Straw Hat when he faces off against True, as well as having the iconic walk to Arlong Park. Both moments showcase just how loyal Usopp is, as he didn't have to fight for Nami. After hearing that his friend was in trouble, him and the rest of the crew go off to protect their friend's honor. Despite still being cowardly, he still ends up beating Chu in a very creative way, and probably one of the more creative fights in the series up to this point. Then Usopp kind of takes a backseat for a little while, as the next few arcs he doesn't really do much in, but when Little Garden shows up, that's when he actually gets to show off again more of his loyalty as well as his bravery. Dory and Bragi are introduced in this arc, and they play very important roles in Usopp's development as they teach him what a brave warrior of the sea is, as well as give him the dream of going to Elbaf one day to hang out with the giants. Usopp even stands up against 3 Baroque Works people as he needed to save his crew. This arc really showcases a lot of what makes Usopp a character: his creativity, his bravery, and his loyalty. All of these aspects that we didn't really get to see much in his first arc, but now are being showcased. Usopp takes a big step back during Drum Island, as that arc doesn't really have much for him to do. But Alabasta is another crowning moment for him, as everyone knows the iconic speech he gives after Miss Merry Christmas makes fun of Luffy's dream to become king of the pirates, and arguably his best moment in the entire series, as he states, "A man will not let his friend's dreams be mocked." This scene showcases everything you need to know about Usopp as a character, as it shows that his bravery doesn't come from his own ego or something, but rather the loyalty he has towards his friends and those he cares about. It also helps that this fight showcases just how creative and innovative Usopp can be, as he takes down 2 Baroque Work members by himself. After Alabasta, though, Usopp does take a bit of a backseat once again, as the next few arcs he doesn't really have much to do. During Jaya, we find out that Usopp has been pretty much the jack of all trades of the Straw Hats, as he's been the shipwright as well as other things on the crew to keep them afloat. During Skypiea, we get to see that he notices that the Going Merry may be sentient, as he gets the foreshadowing during this arc. But other than that, these 2 arcs he doesn't do much in. And the Long Ring Long Island is kind of just laughable to even mention anything there, because most of it does feel like filler. Now we can talk about the 2 best arcs in the entire series, known as Enies Lobby and Water 7, as these 2 arcs revolve around 3 characters specifically, those being Frankie, Robin, and of course Usopp. All 3 of these characters mattered and make the plot in these 2 arcs revolve and go. Remember when I said loyalty would become very important later on in the video? Well, this is what I meant. These 2 arcs are all about Usopp when it comes to his loyalty to just not Kaya, Going Merry, but as well as Luffy. After Usopp got the living shit beat out of him by Frankie and his crew, it was really sad to see him be like, yeah, I don't feel like I'm important to this crew anymore, let alone was I ever really important. So the fight between him and Luffy is one of the biggest and most emotional moments in the entire series, as this is the first and only time a Straw Hat has willingly decided to leave the crew. Usopp during these two arcs is a masterclass on how you evolve a character from just being there to being one of the most important characters in a series. Usopp during these two arcs is the MVP and probably what made a lot of people love Usopp as a character, as overall these two arcs showcase him the best out of any other parts of the story. You have Thriller Bark, which, he doesn't really do much outside of the fight with Perona, but that doesn't really add much to his character, as it's just pretty much the same. And then Sought by Odie, one of the best moments, again, happens towards the end when he's about to get sent away by Kuma. During the fight with Kizaru, he stands there, he sees Zoro get bopped away, and instead of running away, Usopp stands there like a fucking G and says, I'm gonna fight. And this is like probably the biggest moment and the biggest important aspect of his character that we have to see. As before in the story, he would have ran away immediately against Kizaru, but he didn't. He stood there and was ready to fight. This is the biggest change in his character that we've seen, and I think it's amazing and really sells the journey he's been on up to this point. This is where I think Usopp's journey as a brave warrior of the sea should have stopped. Like, this is when he should have been recognized as a brave warrior of the sea. Because anything after this is just the icing on the top. Because he stood up to an admiral as well as Kuma. But anyway, the time skip happens. He goes on to train. And yeah, the first two arcs, he's just there. Like, he doesn't have much to do. Then we get to Dressrosa, where we see the first regression of his character. When he runs away from Sugar. Why is he running away from Sugar? I know people are going to say, well, he still isn't a brave warrior of the sea. And that's the problem with this kind of character. Either you let him get to that point, or you have to keep redoing the same lessons or the same morals again, as he should have already not been afraid of Sugar. He should have stood up against Sugar. As once again, like I stated before, he stood up against a fucking admiral, and Sugar's not even the main person in the fucking crew that she's a part of. The only redeeming aspect of this moment is the fact that he later on gets hockey, but other than that, this doesn't add anything to his character. It just makes him look like he got weaker, when this is a stronger version of Usopp, when he shouldn't be scared of characters like this anymore. If this was Don Flamingo, fine, I could understand that, but this is not even Don Flamingo. This is maybe the third, possibly fourth, at best third member of the crew that's high in importance. After this, Usopp really becomes just an afterthought for the rest of the series up to this point. As in Zao, he doesn't do anything. In Whole Cake Island, he's not there. And then Wano is where his character finally reaches rock bottom. In the fight against Ulti, Nami and Usopp are both on their last leg, as Ulti tells them she'll spare them if they say that Luffy will never become king of the pirates. Usopp subconsciously is telling Nami to lie and say it, despite the fact that why the fuck would Usopp do this? Why? We've seen him back in Alabasta in a similar situation stand up and state that Luffy will become king of the pirates and will never let anyone mock his dream. What are we doing? What the fuck happened to Usopp? Usopp was there to stand up against Kizaru, a fucking admiral. Yeah, he's fucking bowing down to fucking fifth in command people. What are we doing? You could have still had this scene. Just have Usopp be knocked out and Nami still do the same thing and nothing changes. But why'd you have to change Usopp's character to fit this scene? For what? It doesn't add anything. It doesn't change much. It just makes Usopp look worse and look like he digressed as a character. What happened to this character that was all about being a brave warrior of the sea? It was the goal given to him. He's the only goal out of all the Straw Hats that he could feasibly finish before the story even gets close to being done. But because the story isn't done, and once the time skip has happened, every other Straw Hat's goal or dreams haven't really been focused on besides Luffy's. Everything has to stay the same until they're ready to be finished. Because of this, now we have a character that went back to basically square one, if not even worse, as now he doesn't even seem like to be the same brave character he once was. But perhaps Elbath could be his Whole Cake Island like Sanji had, where it can finally fix the character that we've been wanting to see and get him back to basics, or at least further than where he was since the time skip has happened. Let me know in the comments how you feel about Usopp now, and if you agree or disagree with me. This has been Mental Man, and I'll see you next time.